Hello, everyone. We are live. Let me go live on Instagram, which has to be done separately. There we go. And I'm Dr. Nelson Vasquez. I'm coming from sunny California today. I'm in San Diego, California, staying with a cousin. And but I'm normally in Florida, Central Florida. Where are you today, Emily?
I live about an hour and a half south of St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah, right there in the middle.
Yeah. So you're Eastern time.
Central.
Oh, Central is already St. Louis is Central. Okay. Um, all right. I see we have a few people already here. And so today we're going to take some time to talk to Emily Penton, who has a wonderful, amazing story. Um I saw you at Meatstock
Yes.
in Tennessee, and you spoke there. So a few people who actually have a similar story, and I had already uh, talked to Diane Ladd, who also
Yes.
has a similar story. Actually, you didn't know about her. I had sent you on Facebook the the live stream, and I guess you connected because
Yeah, we did. We interviewed Tuesday. I well, we recorded Tuesday. I haven't published it yet, but man, does she have an incredible story.
yes, yes, and you do too. So please put in the chat where you're watching from, what part of the country or the world you're watching from. Sometimes we get people here from Canada and United Kingdom, Australia, even Japan. Although right now, some of those areas, we're in the middle of the day in San Diego and 3 p.m. on the other coast, and some of those places already are nighttime. But anyways, so Angela, why don't you tell us
Emily,
about you?
but I love
And
Angela.
sorry, it's not Angela, it's Emily. Uh,
No, but she's my sister. I love that girl.
okay. It's just that I have an Angela here on the chat, and I just noticed the name.
Oh, I thought you were
Anyways,
talking about meat-based medium.
yeah, at which I also met, and I was with her in Las Vegas as well.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead and tell us about yourself and your story. And I love hearing stories of healing because sometimes, the truth, I'm preemptively saying this, we don't have proof a lot of these things work the way we have seen it work. But what better proof of someone is not one person? One person is an anecdote, and we continue to hear the same anecdote over and over and over again. Just 2 days ago, we had someone with lupus completely gone, no signs, no even antibody titers uh, of her lupus, and multiple sclerosis is another one that is, I've had multiple patients with it. It can be really devastating sometimes. Anyways, go ahead, Emily, and tell us about you and what has happened with you on Carnivore.
Thank you so much. I just really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share this story because I think it's so important to go back and to share my story for others who are still currently suffering. My suffering started with debilitating mental illness, and I didn't know that I had multiple sclerosis as well. But the big glaring obvious problem for me was the mental illness. My diagnosis was bipolar disorder, and it had turned into rapid cycling by the end of 2018. And I was to the point where I actually had to stop practicing. I have my master's in clinical counseling, and I was working in a private practice. And it became unethical for me to practice, because before I would have 3 days a week that I would knock it out of the park. And nobody knew that the other days of the week I was in bed with debilitating mental illness. So I was able to function for a while until I couldn't. So at the end of 2018, I moved in with my mom, and I had to quit working. And the mental illness just got worse. And my brother reached out to me, and he told me about a story from Amber O'Hearn. And she had the first chapter of her book was on audio. And I laid there and I listened to it. And I had hope for the first time, because I had been on a cocktail of medications and been through therapy, and nothing was getting better. It was only getting worse. And at my most, I was on 900 milligrams of lithium, 80 milligrams of Prozac, 80 milligrams of Adderall, just to get out of bed every day, and then Ambien to sleep every night. And I still wasn't functioning. So I heard Amber O'Hearn's story, and all I can attribute it to is that I had this divine intervention, this divine appointment with that book. And I had this clear knowing. And I was just crazy enough to try it. And the bipolar disorder served me in that moment, because I didn't have to read a scientific journal article or figure out the logic or
You
figure
just
out.
jumped into it.
I went all in, bipolar, jumped in. And that was February 24th of 2019. My last bipolar symptom, my last bipolar episode was April of 2019.
2 months later.
You're not supposed to get better. You're supposed to stabilize or get worse. And then finally, my psychiatrist, I went back to work full time in June of 2019. And my psychiatrist was like, Emily, you're planning for the future and there's a light in your eyes. And so we tapered off of all the psych meds. And my last psych med has been September of 2019. And I've only gotten better. The scary thing about my story, and I think it's really important to bring this to the carnivore community, is that 3 weeks into eating this way, I was hospitalized, not in the psych ward, but in the ER, and then eventually into the hospital, because I had acute dysphagia. My throat stopped swallowing. I couldn't even swallow water. And I didn't know until I later met Sally K. Norton that what was happening was that I was having a very fast oxalate dumping. And it didn't cause multiple sclerosis. It exacerbated it to the point where it came to the surface. They did the MRIs, they did the lumbar puncture, and then very soon after that, I couldn't walk without an assistive device. I couldn't talk. I had delayed and slurred speech, and I had more significant brain fog than I ever had with bipolar disorder. So a logical person would say, I started this all meat diet and now physically I'm worse, but mentally I was better. And so I took the gamble of my life and I chose mind over body. I said, if I have my mind, I can deal with my body not working. And I also had this knowing that I was already on the right track, because if autoimmune disease is inflammatory, then I'm eating anti-inflammatory. So I just kept eating fatty animal meat. And my last multiple sclerosis symptom was May 9th of 2019. I've had multiple MRIs. I'm in Dr. Anthony Chafee's study for multiple sclerosis right now, where they're comparing my latest MRI. And I that's my story.
Amazing. Now, you just answered. We have a question here. You happen to have answered, but I'm going to put it here because Papa Carnivore also had bipolar illness, anxiety, HGA, which he's telling you here. And basically, he put it in full remission with high fat carnivore. How much fat are you eating with your carnivore diet? Details. And you at least mentioned just now fatty meat. So how much do you track? Are you trying to track how much of anything you're eating, or you just eat the fatty meat?
Yeah, when I first started, I didn't track anything because I was so mentally ill that I had to make it as simple as possible.
Mhm.
So my whole goal was fatty animal meat. And that's all I kept telling myself at every snack, at every meal: chicken with the skin on, fatty pork butt, ribeye, beef brisket, bacon, sausage. Like I just focused on the fat. And as I focused on the fat, I just naturally ate high fat. And then later I started doing interviews and stuff, and people wanted to know how much. And I was like, I don't know. So I started measuring and stuff. I don't remember those numbers. It's been, 6 years ago. But now I tell people, because this is the easiest way for you to know, is the carnivore bar. Whatever that ratio is of fat to protein, that's what I do. It's basically more fat than protein, and it's what I need for my brain, not only for the multiple sclerosis but also for the mental illness. And I found with my clients that whenever they increase the fat, that's whenever they reduce the bipolar disorder, the anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, all that stuff.
So I have a little bit of a story regarding bipolar illness, anxiety, and depression. I used on my Facebook, my personal Facebook page. I used to uh, be in a group with that it was a group for bipolar, anxiety, and depression. And because as a physician, I've always had an interest in that, and tre- I'm a family physician, so I see a bunch of I've seen a bunch of people with all those, even if they are under the psychiatrist care, because I'm doing their primary care. And I've seen the people with the long list of medications. You need the uppers, the downers, and the sleeping uh, pills to be able to function. Anyways, so I'm in this group, and I have already read uh, Dr. Um, Christopher Palmer's book, Dr. Georgia Eads' book, and someone along the way realized I was a physician, because on my Facebook page is a personal page, and even though I don't hide that I'm a physician, it's not uh, a page for Dr. Nelson. It's for Dr. Yes, for Nelson Vasquez, and they found out I was a physician, so they put me as one of the monitors of the group. But I started among the things I was recommending a low carb diet and recommending Dr. Georgia East and Dr. Christopher Palmer's book, and they banned me from the they banned me from the group. There was a lot of resistance
Yeah,
from
I've
people
been kicked out of many groups.
because they don't believe that diet does anything. And thankfully, there are now psychiatrists out there and other physicians who are getting the message, but it is not a great number. And I have to say, just several years ago, I was one of the ones that was ignorant about the mental illnesses. We're talking about serious issues like bipolar and even schizophrenic patients who were completely dysfunctional and are now on no medications and just following the diet, and they're functioning day to day without traces of the disease. And I've seen people in the ups and the downs of bipolar illness and other uh, severe episodes with their chronic diseases. I used to have an uncle who, after the Korean War, came back and, he, what today is called severe PTSD, but he then went on to have a long list of mental illness diagnosis. But it continues to amaze me to hear the stories. Now, the multiple sclerosis, what were the symptoms, if you can go through a list of all the symptoms you had with the multiple sclerosis?
Yeah, so my diagnosis came in March of 2019, but I looked back and realized I had symptoms for about 10 years previous. My very first symptom was that I would choke when I was eating, and it was random. At first, it just happened once a year, and then it would happen like twice a year. And I noticed it started going more regularly until it would happen about once a month. That I would just be eating food, just the same food, and all of a sudden my throat just stopped working. And of course, when they admitted me, they did a barium swallow test and they realized that it wasn't mechanical, it was neurological, that my brain was not sending the message to my throat to swallow. And so that was my first thing. I do remember in January of 2019, I helped with a move from one house to another, the next. And I had lifted boxes and I felt like I had done CrossFit in my elbows. Like I felt like I had lifted 500 pounds in my elbows. It was, and I found out later that it was because of my joints and my nerves. And I couldn't put my elbow down on a table because it would send shooting nerve pain all up and down. I would have electric shocks to my torso, where it just felt like somebody like tasered me. I would have pins and needle nerve pain all over my body. I couldn't walk without an assistive device. Like if I didn't have a walker or a cane, I would fall over. And I had delayed and slurred speech. Like if I would tell my son, go take a bath, it would come out, go take a bath. And it was so frustrating to not be able to control not only my tongue, but not to be able to control my feet or my hands. I would drop things all the time. And then the brain fog, I couldn't do 3-step processes. Like it took me all morning one day to find the phone number for the doctor, pick up the phone and call the doctor, and then have my calendar so that I could schedule an appointment. That took
And
half a day.
I hope people who are listening, they don't know from a personal experience multiple sclerosis, that if they know anything, it's because they've heard it or read it. Because I've seen everything that you're describing, by the way, in patients, and it can be really daunting. Depending on the area of the brain or the spine where you're having lesions and the short circuit, I call it, then your symptoms will include any or all of those. Uh, Interesting enough, that the elbow thing that you mentioned, putting it on the table, do you know what that is? Why?
No, no.
Okay, so there is a nerve that goes into the arm. You know, when you hit the funny bone in the elbow, is because that is a nerve that it's a fairly big nerve and it's very close to the skin, right in a groove inside the elbow. So whenever you put pressure on that, if your nerves are suffering from whatever inflammation, which is the case with multiple sclerosis, then you're irritating that nerve, and that's the electrical shock that people may feel when they hit the funny bone. Anyways, it can interrupt all the functions of the nervous system. So you realize that you had had symptoms for probably up to 10 years before you were actually diagnosed. And then Had you gone already carnivore when they diagnosed you with multiple sclerosis?
Yep, 3 weeks in.
Three
Three,
weeks in.
3 weeks
So,
in, I was hospitalized and then diagnosed. That's when they did the lumbar
uh,
puncture, the MRI.
so that's interesting because a lot of people, and you mentioned this, may have thought, oh, she went on the carnivore diet and that caused her to have multiple sclerosis. But you actually had symptoms for 10 years. It's just, you
Nobody
had
knew what it was.
exactly. And so many times, same thing happened. Oh, someone goes to carnivore and they happen to have a heart attack or stroke, which is not a disease that happens overnight. This has been 20, 30 years in the making. So whatever damage you've done to your body, just because it happened today, diabetes over 20 years in the making, atherosclerosis, definitely 20, 30 years in the making. It doesn't happen when you have your heart attack. You were doing your damage for a long, long time.
Yeah,
And
and the
some people are very
oxalates.
short sighted, thinking, oh, they went carnivore and that happened. I'm sorry, you said something.
Yeah, for 40 years, I was just chocked full of oxalates. And so then all of a sudden, I, being very bipolar, I went all in and I started oxalate dumping. And so
Hmm.
that's what was the exacerbation of my symptoms of multiple sclerosis, was the oxalate dumping. I didn't realize that until I met Sally K. Norton at Meatstock in 2024. And I was like, oh, that was the onset, or the acute onset of the multiple sclerosis. And because before I had been to my doctors about all these symptoms, like I had um, uh, I couldn't regulate my temperature. Like I was just, I would get really, really, really overheated. And my doctor's like, oh, you're just getting old, or I was popping 800 milligrams of ibuprofen a day just for joint pain. And they're like, you're just getting old. And then the swallowing thing and everything, and nobody could put it all together until it exacerbated. So carnivore was the greatest gift because it pulled back the curtain on what was lying under the surface that I had no idea was hiding there. So I would do it all over again. I would jump in the deep end again. Number one, because I have those tendencies, but number two, because then I was able to really know what I was dealing with. And then whenever I looked at uh, the MRI, it was in my left temporal lobe. And when you look at the symptoms of brain damage in the left temporal lobe and bipolar disorder symptoms, they're very similar. So it was just a perfect storm, and fatty animal meat resolved both of those things.
And I have mentioned I've been a doctor for 41 years and very frustrated with my own profession in many instances. And for example, actually, I'm in my cousin's house, and his son, unbeknownst to me and without my influence, had gone carnivore a few months ago, and he developed a rash. He goes to his primary doctor, and he said, "Oh, that is your diet. You have to stop that." I don't know what panic he caused. So, okay, well, he trusts his doctor and stopped it. It You get a keto rash, probably oxalate dumping. I had a rash for 4 months.
Oh yeah, it was the
Oh,
itchiest thing I've ever had.
yeah,
But
uh,
I educated myself and I knew it was a keto rash and I just kept going and it was
not gonna
gone.
kill you. But uh, his doctor was completely, well, he blamed it on the carnivore diet, but obviously didn't know what it was. Anyways, frustration with my own profession. Anyways, let's see, this is not exactly a question, it's more of a comment. Thank you for being here, Emily, and sharing your story, your experience, strength, and hope.
Thank you, Terry B.
And hope is a key word because we need to live with hope, and we need to have a positive outlook and a mindset. Uh, do you have hope for the future of the world in terms of what currently governments recommend as the right way of eating and what you have learned since 2019?
Yeah. And honestly, I think it's really interesting, like you said, with your profession. I went back into the mental health field and realized very quickly that I don't belong there, because here I am sitting across from someone with depression and anxiety and borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder. And I feel like I have my hands tied behind my back because insurance panels and licensing board does not want me talking about food because I'm not a registered dietitian and I'm not a certified nutritionist. So I was just like, forget the letters behind my name, call me a coach. I help more people now all over the world being a coach than I ever did as a therapist.
All right. So Don is saying, Terry, I wish, talking in the chat, um, I wish I was, but it's my grandson's birthday and the whole family will be here. He's from Columbus. Oh, darn. Who's sponsoring this? They were talking about Columbus, Ohio, the meetup. Tomorrow I'm traveling to there. Dr. Kills will be there and a Healing Humanity event, raising funds to continue the documentary. And it's going to be at the Funny Bone in Columbus, Ohio. And
Awesome.
we're going to have Kerry Mann, Adam Lacey, Russ Mitchell, uh, Homesick Buckeye, and many other people. I'm sorry, the ones I'm not remembering right now. Uh, but Dr. Nelson will be there. Emily, yes, thank you for sharing and helping so many with your testimony. And I echo that sentiment because if you tell your story, you don't even know if you may help someone and you'll never know about it, right? But someone will hear your story and will make a decision of, well, let me try this. Maybe they'll jump right in, or maybe they'll ease into it. Um, did you have many problems by jumping into it? I know you mentioned you had the episode. Uh, you were not able to swallow and difficulty talking and all that. Do you have any other problems by doing it too fast, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was not an issue because I was already so miserable, mentally, emotionally, physically, that it was just a new pile of horrible. That it was just, the keto flu felt like I had the flu, like my joints ached, but they already did. And I was completely lethargic, but I was already lethargic. I had nausea at times, but there were other times that I ate an entire carton of icing and I had nausea. So it wasn't really that much different for me. And then, of course, I had the keto flu, I had the keto rash, I had keto breath. That was for at least a month that I had keto breath. And it was funny because I had already been back to work at that point and I was working with a child. I was a child therapist and I was doing an activity with her and sitting down with her. And she goes, Miss Emily. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, your breath smells like death. I was like, oh, baby, I'm
Don't you
sorry.
love children because they.
I'm so sorry. And I couldn't eat a mint because I was just like, that's not, because I came from sugar addiction. So I couldn't go back into the addiction of sweet taste in my mouth. Oh, and I forgot to tell everybody, I lost 120 pounds. So that was crazy. That was not even my goal. I mean, I was a girl from Southeast Missouri who, everybody looks like bowling balls. Like it just wasn't a thing for me. I thought that it was just normal. I had no idea it was inflammation until I lost 120 pounds and
And
I could tie my shoes.
120 pounds is not an easy thing to lose for most people. Even if you're on Ozempic, even if you have surgery, most people. I mean, that is very remarkable. And even though that was the biggest change that probably people saw,
Yeah.
all right, because forget about the weight. I mean, reversing bipolar illness, reversing multiple sclerosis, that's serious business. But I'm sure the weight, losing 120 pounds, it's a nice thing to do as well. Do you have any pictures?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On my Instagram. I don't know if we can screen share, but it's pinned on my Instagram, before and after.
If you have it up, by all means, you can screen share. I can bring it up if you look for it.
Um,
And
let me see.
I don't have a green screen, so didn't look all right. I just have the wall behind, but this is me before and after. Um,
Oh, I
can you
lost
see in
you.
the back?
No, I just clicked off and I completely lost you. I can't see anything.
All right. Yeah.
There we are. Okay, we're back. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. That was more than 100, less than 120, about at 110, I think.
Wow.
Difference. And
Wow.
certainly, and that's what people see, of course. Yeah. I don't have many pictures of this because you don't like to take pictures when you're that big, right? Uh, but that's what people see. My main concern was actually getting my blood sugars under control, and I've been for year and a half, almost 2 years now, with an A1C of 5.4, reverse hypertension as well. Um,
That's
Let me take
amazing.
this off because it looks funny without the screen. Um,
Yeah, and
or
my blood pressure lowered too. I was on medication for high blood pressure, and that resolved within, just weeks.
what medication were you on?
I have no idea.
Okay,
No
I
clue.
was taking two of them, metoprolol, 300 milligrams, which is a very high dose. I was taking lisinopril, 40 milligrams. That's the maximum dose.
I think that's the one I was taking.
And and even though my blood pressure may have been a little bit better for, I was 6 or 7 months strict keto, and I had lost some 40 pounds, my blood pressure had not improved that much. When I went carnivore 6, 7 months later, it was gone. And February, uh, something significant also happened in February besides my birthday,
My
because the
birthday
day,
is February 10th.
oh, mine is the 15th. So, uh, Aquarius.
Yes.
So, February 14th was the last day I took any medicine. And I remember that because the morning of my birthday, I get up and I pass out because my blood pressure was so low and I was still taking some of the medication I had tapered off. So that's the last time I took any. But sometimes you tell people, I love telling the story and I love hearing the stories. Sometimes you tell people and they don't believe you.
Hmm.
But keep sharing the story, and definitely uh, some will listen because someone will identify with you. MS is a terrible thing, says Larry. A woman I used to work with at the phone company got it, and in 4 months, she had to take a disability retirement. And it's such a variable disease because you could have a slow onset of symptoms, take 10 years before they start having symptoms, and 2 or 3 weeks later, literally could be bedridden. And you have, there's no idea, but certainly it can be very debilitating. And it is anyone out there that has particular, any diseases of the brain. Oh, I'm not suggesting you stop any medications, by the way, on your own. You always work with your doctor, but why can't you try changing your diet? You'll be surprised. Autoimmune diseases seem to get better, less inflammation in your body. Your brain starts working better. And uh, we have one brain, we have one neuron for one function, and we have multiple functions, but it's only one brain. And we've in medicine separated the diseases of the brain into two categories. Oh, these are mental illnesses because, of course, if we go back to Freud, everything was about our mother and and all these theories. And of course, it is mitochondrial dysfunction. Uh, then we have the physical neurological illnesses, epilepsy or Alzheimer's or anything else which is a malfunction of the brain. But everything is a malfunction of the brain. It's the same brain. So it's no surprise that all of them do get or can get improvement. We've known about epilepsy for over 100 years, a ketogenic diet being probably the best, and at the time, probably the only, until they started finding medications to prescribe, and the ketogenic diets went away. And nowadays, they're still used only as a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh option, not as a primary option for many diseases. So you went back to work, but then you shift gears. And do you try to keep a level of ketosis? Do you check your ketones, track them?
I personally do not. Um, I would assume that I'm in pretty strong ketosis. I also practice dry fasting and water fasting, and so I'm pretty much in the zone all the time. But I don't track it, so I don't have confirmation for that. But I did want to speak on something that you just said that I think is very important to have in this conversation. That I get why a lot of influencers are wanting to just promote this and have people to try it, especially if they're suffering with autoimmune disease. But it is not lost on me that multiple sclerosis is a very unpredictable disease, and that it could come back tomorrow. But
that's what your neurologist would probably say anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, the arguments I've had with my neurologist have been interesting, but I think it's very important to say that what I have found is that everyone that has reported back to me or worked with me that has had an autoimmune disease like multiple sclerosis, I'm not saying that it cures it. I'm saying that it improves their symptoms, that it is better to eat fatty animal meat than Doritos and ramen noodles. That's all I'm saying. And who knows what tomorrow brings? But I'll be honest and I'll tell you about it. I'll show you the MRIs, But I think it's very important that we say that and that we let people know. But I will tell you that it is obvious the significance that I had mental illness for 40 years, and then for 6 years I haven't had it, and off of my psych meds for the first time in it was over 8 years at that point that I had been on psych meds. And so I think it's important to have a real conversation about that.
Of course. I mean, and this is where telling your story again, it's important because this happened to me. This is what I did. So you have a personal experience. Nobody can tell you it isn't that. even if the neurologist tries, because you keep hearing the anecdotes out there. So, you mentioned you're in a study, and hopefully within a few years we'll have more and more studies. But all this improvement and these books by the psychiatrists from Harvard is very important because it gives it a little bit of credibility that all these brain disorders, whether it's mental or physical, uh, seem to improve. And by the way, I love that you don't track. You know why? Because you don't need to track.
And
You
I
know,
work with mentally ill people. So they don't need another rabbit hole to go down.
yeah.
They don't need another marker to track. They need to just
They can very easily
nourish
get
themselves.
obsessed with the tracking as well. So
Exactly. That's why I don't track, because I don't want because I found that people are going to do blindly what I do. And so if you're going to do blindly what I do, increase your animal fat. I'm done.
and Papa Carnivore just mentioned that. Sorry about that, Peter. You had a recent breakup and had anxiety and depression symptoms come back, and he treated it with high fat and it got better.
I
Uh,
love it. I love it because what I found is that the mental illness is the lens with which we see our environment through. And so the environment doesn't change, our lens changes and how we see it. And so that's what it sounds like, Peter, happened with you, is that you were able to process and not be gut punched by the breakup. You were able to flow through it because of your lens was clear with that, honestly removing the inflammation from your brain.
Now, in the spirit of not tracking, I'm not a big tracker, but I did go through 22 days of fasting in July, and I was checking my ketones every day. The last 10 days, I was in the fours, for up to 4.9 uh, most days. But I stopped. Yeah, as soon as I started eating again, I stopped tracking. I do track my blood sugars because I'm still on that journey. That is my main concern, and right now I'm visiting with people who had not seen me in 3 years, 4 years now, actually.
Wow.
And of course, they notice the difference, but I feel 10 times better, 100 times better. And I think quality of life improvement is so much more important than if I'm going to add any one day to my life, because I have no idea how many days I'm going to live. I cannot tell you how I would predict that. My dad lived to 92, my mother to 67. So I got 50-50 genes from them, right? So maybe I'll fall somewhere in between. But as long as my quality of life is as good as it is right now or better, then I'm happy with the results because I have no idea. A lot of the longevity studies are, it's good to have an experiment and maybe along the way you improve quality of life, but who knows? It could be hocus pocus, and you don't know if you're adding any days to your life. But if you add quality of life, that's good. And in your case, for example, you have now for 6 years had a definitely quality of life that you didn't have before, right? And so if we last 100 or 120 or 85 or 80 or 70, I'll be happy with it at least.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that quality of life is everything for me. And it keeps getting better. Like, I'm not who I was last year. I'm not who I was 6 months ago. Like, I just keep getting better. And that's crazy to me. Like, I just thought it would just, flatline at some point. But I keep getting healing.
Yeah. And that's what I hear from longer times because I've been carnivore for basically 26 months now. But I keep hearing people 7 years in, another thing improved. Wait a second. You mean that you've been 7 years improving and now you're finding out other things? And that's great because that's something to look forward to. What do you say to people who find it restrictive? They use a lot that, well, it's restrictive or non-sustainable is one of the bigger excuses for people doing low carb or carnivore. What do you say to people who tell you that?
Well, what is restrictive is being on medication and surviving on medication. And whenever the pharmacist messes up your script and then they just don't have your script for 7 days, and all of a sudden you withdraw from all of your medications involuntarily, that's restrictive. Whenever you can't get out of bed and whenever you can't walk, that's restrictive. When you can't think, whenever your emotions are a freaking roller coaster and you can't even function and you get fired from your job and you have breakups and multiple marriages and ruin friendships and have family members that don't trust you anymore because of your mental illness, that's restrictive. This is a piece of steak. This is the easiest, most, I'm sorry, not easiest. This is the simplest thing that I could have done. And it has been not restrictive because of the quality of life that I have, because of the joy, because of the capacity that I have. Physically, I could do CrossFit. Mentally, I coach people all over the world. Like it's impossible to compare the two and talk about restriction, because now I am completely free on every level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. It's across the board.
Well, I'm gonna certainly clip that, okay?
Good.
Because that was a perfect answer. I mean, yes, sometimes it's a matter of perspective, right? And so, what are you calling restrictive? That you're not eating a group of food and you're having steak, uh, just because you wanted to have a little bit of maybe the bread or the pasta or the roots, the potato, the whatever the food is. When we deal with addiction, sometimes we can't let go of that, and that might be something different for everyone. But it certainly is restrictive to think about the consequences of the path we're on right now and why. Oh, Diane Ladd is here. Why can't you give this a try? Give this a try for, hey, a week, 30 days, 90 days. Uh, you may find that it is not as restrictive. And I do understand a little bit because several years, I've been aware that people eat that way for several years, but I thought they were crazy. Now I'm one of the crazy ones. But we all know the story about Dr. Peterson and Joe Rogan, and these people eating meat only. They must be a little bit nuts. And yeah, you know, now I'm one of the ones who's definitely crazy. And some people try it and they go back to uh, the addictive behavior and foods that they just can't give up. But the way I look at it, me eating some of those things are now poison to me. So when I think about it that way, I'm not going to have it because it's literally poison.
No, and my dad told me this story about this man who was so depressed and he couldn't handle his life anymore. And so he was like, okay, I'm going to commit suicide and I am going to take my life by not eating. And so he just didn't eat. And then after 20 days, his depression lifted for the first time in his entire life. And so go, take your own life by eating steak. Like go out with a bang.
Or
Go
go in
knock
a
yourself out with ribeye.
20-day fast. I mean, your ketones are gonna get up there. I can guarantee you that. But that's an
Exactly.
interesting story.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then the guy lived. He lived to tell it, and he totally changed his eating, and now he's thriving. I
I
love
love
it.
it. I
I
love
do
it.
want to say hi to Earl. It's so good to hear from you, Carnivore Cutie, and of course Diane Ladd. Hi guys, love y'all.
I love Emily and her story, and Earl and Diane,
Earl was at Meat Stock.
and of course, I cannot. I lived in Massachusetts for 8 years. I cannot quite imitate the
Diane,
accent, but
yeah,
I do
Carnivore.
say some words like they do because I lived in Worcester County, and it's Worcester County. Uh, Carnivore, you know, the the way they pronounce the R.
Yeah, I love talking to Diane. That's awesome.
Um, we found the beef. That's a reference to horse the beef.
Carnivore,
Uh,
Carnivore.
Carnivore.
I love it.
If you have any other questions for Emily, please put them in the chat. In a few minutes, we're coming up to the top of the hour, but this is just keep telling your story, Emily, and just anyone that wants to hear will hear. And a lot of people will say, yeah, that's not for me. That's not true. That's not going to happen. Many things. But I kind of plead with people who are having, in particular, serious issue like the ones we've talked about. Bipolar illness is not a simple thing. Uh, Multiple sclerosis, it can be very debilitating. And listen, if we even if we can never claim a cure, if you have improvement of symptoms, even if you're getting medication, which it seems some people are able to get off the medication, right? I know Diane has, and you have.
I was never on the MS medication, but yeah,
Okay. Well, but within months of, you know, symptoms did
yeah.
resolve very quickly. Um, you don't have to ask permission to your doctor from your doctor to do change your diet.
Yeah. Hey, doctor, can I stop eating Doritos? Is that okay? Can I stop eating icing right out of the carton? Would you approve?
Yeah. And especially when you go to eating something that we have been eating for thousands of years. No matter what your reference and your beliefs are, creation, evolution, we've been here for thousands of years, and we've been eating meat for thousands of years. All of a sudden, meat is bad for you. In the past, I don't know, 50, 100 years, meat's bad for you, but it hasn't been bad for 1,000 years. And it's causing diseases that it never caused before, but it is now. Hey, you know, there ultra processed food, refined sugar, vegetable seed oils. Um, I think if we all stopped eating the sugar, the refined sugar, even if you're still eating some plants, but you eliminate everything that's man-made and you just eat. And I have to be careful with saying man-made because even when you go to the grocery aisle nowadays, most of the things there are man-made, genetic modified organisms, GMO. But even that probably is going to be better than the box of eggs and the
Hmm.
bag of that other thing and the can of this. you know.
100%, 100%. And that's why I start with, explaining to my clients what it means to have a metabolic ketogenic diet. Because if I just jump right into carnivore, sometimes they have no form or reference to that. And so we just start with, we're going to remove the Doritos. We're going to remove the ramen noodles. We're going to remove the soda. We're going to remove the ice cream and the pies and the cakes. Oh, okay, that's a little bit easier of a transition than we're just going to eat raw meat, you know? Like, I think it's really important to meet people where they're at.
It's funny you mentioned raw meat because this morning in the morning live, we do it at 6 a.m., but it's 3 a.m. in San Diego. And between 3 and 4, I'm in the live. We talked about steak and I got hungry. And there's some Wagyu uh, strip steaks that I had in the refrigerator. I pull one out. I put salt, put a little bit of tahine seasoning, and I ate it raw.
Yeah, I ate raw for 3.5 years, right
Okay.
straight from my farmer. And I was thriving. I loved it. And I didn't have to do as many dishes because I didn't
Yeah.
have to have the cooking pan.
Yesterday, I had a bone-in ribeye that was basically black and blue. My cousin did that in the grill. Okay, one more question. Emily, how long did it take for you to notice that the metabolic ketogenic diet helped you?
Um, so that's hard because things got worse before they got better. I had the keto flu. I had the like I was completely lethargic, and then I was hospitalized with the multiple sclerosis. Then I couldn't walk, so it actually got worse. But I noticed that at the I would say the fourth week, I had this little pinhole glimpse of hope, and it lasted for 10 minutes. And it was such a foreign emotion that I was like, what is that? What is that? Like, I'm happy for a second. And then it only lasted for 10 minutes. And I was like, that was weird. The next day, it happened for 15 minutes. And then the next day, 20. And then now I can't have a bad day. Like, I could have a flat tire. I could drop a jar of raw milk on the floor and it shatter everywhere. I could have an argument with my husband. I could have an argument with my kid. And my best friend doesn't respond to my texts. And I still have a good day because I have that stability. And so I would say 30 days. Within 30 days, I really got that glimpse of hope. And it was just enough for me to just keep going. And then, of course, the multiple sclerosis resolved May 9th of 2019. And I started eating this way February 24th. So that's,
Less than 2 months.
yeah, yeah,
No, less than 3 months. Sorry.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being with us, Emily. Come back whenever you want. You can come back as well. I know, the morning lives with Dr. Kills
Yeah, I would love to do a
usually
morning
there.
live.
Uh, the Zoom calls on Mondays. We also can have you there. Email Alia, and you have her email because we've been communicating, right? So email Alia at drkills.com if you want to be in any of our lives throughout the week. We basically have 8 hours every week. Um, and thank you for being here. Thank all of you who are here for being here as well. I usually don't have time to go through all the names because I'm by myself here, but thank you for being here and supporting this channel. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Tell everyone about it. Uh,
Absolutely. Thank you guys
what's
so much.
what's the worst that can happen? They're gonna call you crazy, and I'm not gonna eat that way. Okay, all right. So, where can people find you, Emily?
Right now, they can find me at innerclaritysystem.com.
Okay,
Or if you search Emily Penton anywhere, I mean, you could literally Google Emily Penton, and it's like a pen that you write with that weighs a ton. Emily Penton. Because
Never thought about it.
I'm
It's a
writing a really powerful story, and so I need
yeah,
a heavy pen.
yeah. And if you, in YouTube, if you search for any Emily Penton Carnivore, which is what I did, I found your channel that way. Anyways, uh, thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm traveling tomorrow to uh, Columbus, Ohio for the meetup over there, and Dr. Kills will be there as well. You have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.